Spotlight on content creators. Is all this plastic in our board gaming hobby starting to become really, really terrible for the hobby? A really good RPG segment, and I just might have to disappear for a little while. Luckily, I hear Vienna is very nice this time of year. Must be the first Monday show. Come on back after the break. Hey everybody, welcome to the show, Board Game Reviews. This is a YouTube channel dedicated to the board gaming hobby, and this is a monthly vlog where I talk about various topics of interest, throw in a little bit of RPG content, and also talk about a certain topic or something that has my interest that I want to share with all of you out there. Now, this month's video is a little bit late, and unfortunately it was late because the entire month of April was a little bit chaotic and crazy for me. So this is probably, when this goes live, this is going to be the second Monday show for the month of May, but just allow me this one little slip of this month while I try to get everything all caught up. Got a whole bunch of great content coming out for the channel very, very soon, including a full review of Warhammer Quest Cursed City, and it's going to be a full review of the game, not just a play of one or two missions. That's not really a word, is it? I have beaten the game. I guess that's kind of a word, but just not used properly. I have completed the game, which means I've gone through and finished the last mission. So my full review is actually based on a complete playthrough of the game, not just on a couple of missions. So I can give you a 100% honest review of the game. And some of what you heard is true, and some of what you heard, it really isn't true. It's kind of an interesting thing, but stay tuned for that video that's going to be coming out next week. Also, the topic for this month's video is going to be all about the plastic that we are starting to see in our board gaming hobby here. Is it good for the industry? Is it good for the hobby? And is it really, really good for the pocketbook? And what really sponsored the idea for this month's video was two things. One, I was going to talk about a content or a topic, but that topic is starting to become pretty much a really bad hotspot. So I think I'm going to tiptoe around it and try just to stay away from it because it's starting to create a lot of hate and discontent in the hobby. And that's something I'm not willing to be part of in any way, shape, or form. So the next thing that really had my attention was the fact that the price of board games are starting to skyrocket, and it's a lot of it is based on the price of all these board games that we're getting with all this plastic miniatures. Is it worth it? Is it worth the money investment? Is it worth all the delays? Is it worth all the problems all this plastic creates when it's not really adding anything besides bling to a board game? We all know that a board game is good because it's well designed, well written, well produced. Plastic, whether it's in the game or not in the game, doesn't really matter at all to all of us board gamers. Finally, I have a good little RPG segment because RPGs, we all know that I'm getting a lot of questions about how do you become or how do you get into RPGs as an adult? We all know that adulting is really time consuming. It's not like back in the good old days when we were teenagers or the good old days we hope come eventually when we get to retire where we have a lot of time on our hands. These days, adulting takes up a lot of time, and it's just really hard to find time to play a good RPG. So I have a good RPG review segment where I'm going to talk about an RPG that's absolutely fantastic for people who have to adult, but still want to play RPGs and have lots of fun with their friends. And finally, we're going to have a quick unboxing of Vienna Connection, which is coming out from Portal Games. Yes, I got my letter in the mail yesterday, and kind of cool, the same day I actually got my package that arrived for me. Now, Vienna Connection, if you're not familiar with it, this is a game in the detective universe, and it's a full standalone game where you're going to play through this wonderful spy CIA 1977's 4 missions are going to tell this nice complete story. Now, I'm actually thinking about playing the entire first mission through a video in the first month of June, which I think will be pretty darn awesome. The actual game itself doesn't go live till I think May. Well, I got the cheat sheet right here. Why don't I just read it so that way I'm not making mistakes. May 21st. So the game actually goes live on May 21st because it is going to use a internet integration where you're going to use the internet to do a whole bunch of research to play the game. So I can't really play the game yet, but after May 21st it's going to go live, but I can definitely do an unboxing for you because I have not opened up the package and I am so excited to go ahead and do so. But I don't want this video to run long. Let's go ahead and start things off with a spotlight on content creators because I think there's a whole bunch of great spotlight or a whole bunch of great content creators out there who are just not getting the time and the recognition that they definitely deserve. Great content, great production values, and they bring us some great stuff. So let's go ahead and look at our first content creator. And this month, only going to cover one because I know this video is going to run a little bit long because that video part where I'm going to talk about the RPG, I haven't done a full RPG review yet, and I have some ideas of what I want to do, but I'm pretty sure it's going to run a good 20 to 25 minutes. So kind of keep the length of this video down. We're only going to cover one content creator this month, and let's go ahead and look at them. That's going to be Glory Hound. Now, Glory Hound is a YouTube channel that's been around for about 5 years now, but actually most of their video content's been coming out for the past 2 years, and their video content involves a couple who likes to do a lot of things, but a lot of their main focus is on gameplays, Twitch live streams, but they also put all their content out there on YouTube, and then also talking about future Kickstarter contents and live plays for all these games. Now, they put out content quite a bit. The production quality is extremely well designed. It's a great, fantastic. Their audio is fantastic. The look of the show is fantastic. They have multiple camera angles, and it's a couple who has some good banter and some good back and forth between them that makes you think that these are two people been playing games for a long time, been together for a long time, and they enjoy each other's company quite a bit. They do some wonderful content, and of course, I'm going to put a link down to the YouTube channel down the show comments down below. But if you're looking for a content creator who brings out a lot of talk about Kickstarter products, they bring out some very frequent content as a good couples gaming where they just bring out some content that you can definitely enjoy. Check out Glory Hound. And now for this month's topic, the topic about all the plastic on our board gaming hobby, and is it really good for industry? Is it really good for us as gamers? And is it really something that we want to keep supporting? Well, of course, I got to avoid being hypocritical because we all know I'm a huge Games Workshop supporter. So what I'm really talking about right here is I'm talking about the plastic in board games themselves, not the miniature hobby itself, which is totally something completely different right here. So what really brought this topic and brought it to spotlight for me, and really made me start thinking about this, is recently I was over at my local Barnes & Nobles looking for a cool, fun game that I can play with my family. Because, you know, my family, they play family-style games. I'm the one in the family who's a big hardcore gamer, likes to play all the really big strategy games, all these deep cooperative games. You know, you've seen my channel, you know what kind of content I like, what kind of games I like. So I was over at Barnes & Noble looking for a good family game that I can play with my family, and I came upon Overboss. Now, Overboss is a really interesting game because basic idea of Overboss is this is just a tile laying game, but it includes 2 layers of tile laying, which is actually one of the interesting things about the game. Now, the game itself comes with a very nice box. It comes with a very nice package. It comes with a very nice insert. You get some double-sided, almost a double layer. That would have been terrible there. But you get some double-sided player boards, which are thick cardboard. You have this wonderful, nice insert, and you have this secondary insert, which keeps all these components together extremely nicely. Not only that, this game actually started out as a Kickstarter project. Now, I did not back the Kickstarter. I mean, I went to Barnes & Noble to pick this up for $40. And that's going to be really important here in just a second. I literally spent less than $40 to get this game. But when this game originally came out on Kickstarter, it came out, I think the project went live in June of 2020, maybe May or June. And their projected delivery date for this game was late October. The game finally did ship in February of 2021. So basically from Kickstarter live to actually delivery to all the backers was a little over 7.5 to maybe 8 months total. More realistically, about 7.5 months. And all this came out, and you now have this game that's also available in retail spaces. So why am I bringing this up, and what's so important about mentioning the fact that you have this game that costs less than $40, has all this great inserts and all these components and this wonderful production quality, and it came out in 7.5 months after the Kickstarter was available? Why is that so important? After learning how to play Overboss and playing it a few times, I actually realized that the game was actually pretty darn good. And it's a really fun game, especially when you consider it's just $40. This kind of made me go over to my Kickstarter history and start looking at my back history of games. The first thing I looked at was, of course, The Great Wall. Now, if you're not familiar with The Great Wall is a game that is really kind of 2 tiers of games, which is kind of interesting. And I mention this because I actually want to talk about this a little bit later in this conversation here, but The Great Wall actually has 2 products. Well, 2 products isn't the right word for it. Basically, you have your basic edition, which is going to use 100% wooden components, which is finished. It's been produced. It is, I'm sorry, I should be very specific here. It's been produced at the factory level, meaning the components are basically done. And then you have the second version, which is the exact same game, just instead of wooden components, they replace all the wooden components with miniatures. Now, I'm not going to lie, the miniatures look really, really fantastic. Even the final miniatures, we're not talking about the 3D renders or the estimates of what they're going to look like. You actually have photographs of what the final miniatures are going to look like. But the final miniatures look really, really good. But I looked at the fact that I backed this game at the wooden component level. Why? Because, well, at the time when I backed this, I pretty much had plastic bloat in my game collection. I really didn't want any more plastic in my collection because, first of all, I saw the price difference. It was $100 for no more gameplay. The exact same game, $100 more if I just want to get the miniatures. And I was like, yeah, I don't need to spend $100 for a whole bunch more plastic. The wooden components would be fantastic. And actually, looking at the quality of the wooden components, I'm actually happy I made this decision, because those wooden components look really, really dang good. Sure, the plastic miniatures look really good too, but the wooden components can be more than adequate, and they're actually beyond adequate. They look really darn good. This sent me further back in my Kickstarter history. It made me look at ISS Vanguard. Now, ISS Vanguard is a game that I'm having a lot of personal heartburn with, because it's a game that I know is never going to hit retail. This is a game that I know is going to be a game that you're going to play kind of, I want to kind of use a reference to maybe a legacy style game, even though it's not really a legacy style game, because it is a campaign style game where you're going to play through a story style game. And after you play through the game, the amount of replay that's going to be in the game is not going to be really that high. You've seen the story, you've seen the interactions, you've seen the evolution of going to various different planets, doing these various different things and interacting with a storyline. So it's not a game that you can play a lot of times. But this is a game that is not going to come to retail because it's a large project, and it's a game that's going to cost you $250 a Kickstarter. I don't think that there's $250 worth of game in this game. Not saying it's a bad game. Please don't misconstrue what I'm saying here. It actually looks like a really entertaining game. And it looks like a game that the one time I'm going to play through it, I'm going to have a lot of fun playing a story-style evolving game, but I'm not going to play it twice. And on top of that, you're looking at a game that's $250 because of a lot of plastic miniatures, which in my opinion, don't add anything. Basically, we could have little cardboard standees, place them on every one of the various different locations, and probably knock $150 off the price of the game. Well, maybe not $150, but at least $100 off the price of the game. The miniatures look great, but they're not doing anything for the gameplay at all. It's basically table presence, table bling, and a lot more money out of the pocketbook just to play this game. And it's a game I have a lot of heartburn with right now, because right now I'm in on the basic level, which I think is $179 US, and that does not give you the extra expansion and the extra, I think they're called they're not starter missions, I think they're called character missions. But you don't get the extra character missions if you want those, because those extra missions come with more plastic miniatures, which again look great on the table. I'm not going to lie, we all know they look great on the table, but they're not adding extra gameplay. So if I want that extra expansion, I need to spend the extra $80. I need to get the extra miniatures that I have no use, no want, or any desire for. So it's a game I kind of have a lot of heartburn with, because I know I want the game. I just don't know if I want to spend $250 just to get the extra bling. Now, you need to understand where I'm coming from when I'm talking about this kind of stuff, because I have a little bit of ability to actually back up my comments here when it's coming to price. I'm not saying that miniatures are going to be added to the price every single time because I'm making stuff up. You can actually back it up by looking at the retail presence for various different games. Let's look at a game such as Caverna. Caverna, nobody's going to argue, comes with a phenomenal amount of components. You have a lot of thick cardboard boards, a lot of thick cardboard components, and a massive amount of wooden components. I mean, these aren't little square cubes. If you've never seen Caverna, Caverna is the cave farmer's game. It's basically a more family-friendly version of Agricola. In my opinion, I think it's actually the better version, but that's just me. I know I'm a little more unique in that, but I would rather play Caverna 100 times before I play Agricola Misery Farm once or twice. Yes, it's a great game, but I think Agricola as a gameplay experience is a better game. But the game has even custom meeples for the cows, has custom meeples for the sheep, custom meeples for the dog. Everything is very customized. So when you play the game, you have the look of these wonderful meeples that are made out of wood, yet it's a game that only costs you $80. Next up, we have a game such as Terra Mystica. Now, Terra Mystica is a game that costs about $80 retail these days. Again, we have a lot of components, a lot of wooden components. Now, it's not as nice as Caverna, but I want to throw in here just so you don't think I'm cherry picking, looking for the best things, to accentuate my point and try to say that my point is right. I'm trying to be as fair as I can here when I'm talking about my point here, but you look at a game such as Terra Mystica, this game has a phenomenal amount of wood in it again. I mean, you have wood for every single one of the factions, for every one of the faction colors. Now, granted, they're not individually shaped in any fancy designs. Matter of fact, the castle is a little bit of a square with a little bit of rounded edges. The temples is more of an oblong. Each one of the houses is a very basic looking house, but it's a fantastic amount of content that comes in this box, a wonderful amount of replay, and nobody's going to argue that Terra Mystica is not a phenomenally replayable game. This is a game that's been out for many, many years, and people are still playing this game. It's basically a modern version of chess, because the game has so much rich play, rich gameplay, rich strategies. Oh, well, you know, just check out my top 51 games of all time, where Terra Mystica is very, very high on the list. To realize that I'm talking about a game that's going to be around for a long time, at a great price with a lot of fantastic components. Now, we can even go a little bit higher up on the price scale, and we look at a game such as A Feast for Odin. Now, A Feast for Odin is about $100 retail, but just looking again at the amount of components in the box, You have a phenomenal amount of components in these game boxes and a phenomenal amount of replay and a phenomenal amount of variety in these games. And all three of these games I've just mentioned are $100 or less, which is nowhere near the price of these games I was talking about a few moments ago, such as ISS Vanguard, $250, Great Wall with miniatures, almost $200. And I couldn't even mention another game that we can all think about that costs well over $1,000 just because it has a lot of miniatures in it. But again, it's a board game, not a true miniature style game. So what about hybrid games though? I've actually haven't talked about any hybrid games, but let's talk about a couple different hybrid games out there and see how the price is influencing some of those games. Let's talk about the big old elephant in the room, or the 800-pound gorilla in the room, and let's talk about Gloomhaven. Now Gloomhaven you can get usually for about anywhere for about $130 to $140 retail. And that game has a bonkers amount of replay variety in the game. Nobody's going to argue that Gloomhaven does not have a lot of replay in it. Because if you do, you're just absolutely insane, because the game has a phenomenal amount of replay to it. Now, it is a little bit unfair to mention Gloomhaven here because of two reasons. One, the game had such a huge production run. We know that the more of a production run a game has, the more the price is going to come down. Because one of the caveats when it comes to miniatures and miniature molding is the biggest price for miniature molding is the initial investment of getting the molds made. Once you have the molds made, usually costs anywhere from $10,000 to about $30,000 depending on the complexity of the mold and everything along those lines. But once the mold has actually been made for the various different miniature products inside each individual game, the mold doesn't have to be made anymore, and the only thing you're paying for is plastic at that point. So a game like Gloomhaven that sells like 20, 30, or even 40,000 units of it can keep the price down though. But if you start looking at games that are not shifting that many units, games that are shifting more like 2,000, 3,000, or maybe 5,000 units, you start seeing a whole bunch of problems. One of the biggest problems you see is that they're not being able to produce these games on a quick enough basis, because a lot of the factories overseas, they're basically going to move the products that are the biggest amount of profit for them. I mean, we all need to understand, and I'm sure we can all agree, that profit is the biggest motivator for a lot of these overseas industries. They need to move move product as quickly as possible. So the way their assembly lines generally work is the biggest products are going to be the ones that are going to get the most attention, and the smaller products are usually going to be pushed to the side repeatedly until those individual product creators make a big old fit and start demanding and saying that if you don't put my product out there, I'm basically going to look for another publisher. And we've seen how that has bitten some publishers in the tail by just having to do so. You see some publishers are starting to see products who are being delayed by a year or more. Matter of fact, if you go to Kickstarter right now and look at any miniatures heavies game, I'm not going to start naming any because I don't want to seem like I'm cherry picking any, but go to Kickstarter right now, look at any miniatures heavies game that only made maybe $1 million, maybe $1.5 million or less. You're going to see that the game is always delayed, anywhere from 8 months to a year or even more. And the biggest thing that's causing all these delays is the miniatures themselves, because the miniature molds are taking time to make. We are seeing that the games are not pushing as much product as is necessary. So the ones that are doing the large print runs, such as your Cool Mini or Not, who's doing like $7 or $8 million size Kickstarters, meaning that they're producing 10, 15, or 20,000 SKUs of these products, they're going to the front of the assembly line, while these games are only pushing them maybe 1,000, 2,000, 3,000, or even 5,000 SKUs are moving towards the back of the assembly line, which means that all these games that we have been pledging for, all these games that we've been looking for, they're moving further and further back in the lines of their delays, and that's an additional part of the problem, and it's also all stemming from the plastic in the games. So now I need to ask the question again, are all these delays and are all these prices really worth it for the plastic in all these games, which is only adding bling to the table? Very rarely does it ever add extra gameplay to the game. So I just mentioned two more projects out there before I wrap up this and go ahead into our RPG segment. I just want to talk about two more publishers, and just to emphasize my point here, let's go ahead and look at the first one. That's going to be Portal Games. Now, I'm sure unless you've lived under a rock, you are absolutely 100% familiar of the most recent GameFound project from Portal Games, which happens to be the second edition or the reimagining, the blinged out version of Robinson Crusoe. Now, nobody's going to argue that Robinson Crusoe is not an absolutely fantastic cooperative game. This is a brilliantly designed cooperative game. It's very challenging, multiple scenarios, like insane amount of replay variety, and just an insane amount of production in the basic game of Robinson Crusoe. Now, we know that there's a new version of the game that came out on GameFound, which is basically what I would like to say is basically the designers Ignacy's dream version of the game. Basically, we have taken everything about the game and we're just going to turn everything up to 11 by adding in some more higher quality components, better player boards, but also we're adding in a whole bunch of miniatures. Now, do these miniatures add anything to the gameplay? No, they do not add anything to the gameplay at all. Matter of fact, all these miniatures are just literally plastic versions of all the wooden components that have been in the game ever since the beginning. Now, the original version of the game of Robinson Crusoe, you get anywhere from $50 to $80 retail, depending on if it's between print runs, depending if you can find over on Amazon or anything like that. But the game itself is not that expensive. And in that base box, you get a whole bunch of wooden components, a great amount of gameplay, multiple missions, multiple scenarios, whatever you want to call them, and it's a game that you're going to enjoy for a heck of a long time. You have way more components than you'll ever be able to use in multiple games. Matter of fact, it's possible to play Robinson Crusoe a dozen times without ever seeing the same card coming up or without the same challenges and playing different missions and having a wonderful amount of fun. The newest GameFound version of the game with all the blinged out plastic, all the blinged out extra stuff, is going to cost you over $400. I don't think the game is worth $400 just to get extra plastic. Now, I want to say that I think the game is worth it for its gameplay value, but I don't think all this extra plastic is adding anything to the game. And if I want to get all this gameplay stuff, again, I have to buy all the plastic. Now, I don't want to sound like I'm a hypocrite here because, I do enjoy my plastic games. I do enjoy my miniature style game when I'm talking about plastic. I'm a huge Games Workshop fanboy. Matter of fact, I enjoy playing Necromunda. I enjoy playing Kill Team. I enjoy playing Warcry. I enjoy all these games. But to be fair, if I wanted to throw myself underneath the bus here, I'd be perfectly fine playing Blood Bowl without miniatures and just using standees and saving a whole bunch of money there. So maybe just to sound like a little bit less of a hypocrite, I definitely need to mention that about Games Workshop. But back on point, you see just how much money we're having to spend just for one single board game with all its expansions and all its add-ons and all this plastic miniatures, well over $400 US. Not only that, you can see how much the plastic crunch is starting to affect even big publishers such as Cool Mini or not. You can go back in time to the original Zombicide, which I think is probably about 8 or 9 years old now. Don't quote me on that, but I think it's about 8 or 9 years old now. Everything in the original Zombicide was about $120 to get the full all-in package. To get the most recent version of Zombicide, which is Zombicide, I think Dead or Alive, I think is the most recent version, everything to go all in is $240. Again, is all that plastic adding another $120 worth of gameplay, basically doubling the price just to get all this gameplay. Is the plastic really, really worth it? And that's the question I'm basically asking here. So I guess my big question here is there a solution? Do we need a solution? Is there really a problem here? Well, I think for the average consumer, yes, we're slowly working our way into a bigger and bigger problem because your average consumer is starting to balk at paying $100 for a board game. $150, $200, $300, and even $450. Yes, I know this was Ignacy's dream version of his game, but it's a consumer's nightmare because nobody's going to spend $450 for one single board game. Okay, yes, I know some people will do it, but your average consumer is not going to do it. So is there a solution? Yes, I think there's a solution. What I really love to see for our industry to do before it starts to bury itself under this massive plastic is I would like to see us start running 2 different versions of every single Kickstarter. One just to be a Kickstarter for the game, and one just for a Kickstarter with the blinged out components. Not the game, just a blinged out components. So you can get the game with those wooden components through this one Kickstarter, and then we're gonna have a separate Kickstarter that you can go ahead and back, which is just gonna be out the blinged out components. I think that's a good solution. I think that's a great middle ground. I think that's gonna allow for everybody to go out there and still enjoy the base game without having to worry about the delays, the prices, and all the problems that comes with the plastic injection. If I back the basic game and that's all I want, it shows up my door, I get to enjoy the game, I get to have tons of fun with this game, get the gameplay that's in the game itself without the need of the plastic. And if it happens to be one of those games that looks really good with the plastic, I can get all that plastic back a separate Kickstarter that can suffer its own delays, its own problems, and everything along those lines, because I'll still have the game over here to enjoy, and eventually all that plastic is going to show up. I think that's one possible viable solution, one that may help keep the prices down, keep the junkie vein tapped a little bit. Yes, I know we all have a little bit of a junkie vein, but I think it's going to help this industry stop itself from spiraling into a tunnel that's going to cause a big problem that we're never going to recover from. Because I think the prices are starting to go up too far, and the amount of gameplay and the replay variety is starting to go down, and the biggest focus that I'm starting to see is a big old focus on the bling, the production values, while we're forgetting that the gameplay is the big reason why we play all these board games. So what's your opinions? What do you think? Do you think I'm off my gourd here? Do you think I'm onto something here? Do you have any other comments or things that you want to add in? Add them down below. Share your opinions, share your thoughts. Do you think that the industry is doing some bad things? Are you enjoying all this plastic? Are you okay with the horrible amount of delays, the horrible amount of prices, or is it something that you're pretty much okay with? Do you want to see more of this? Want to see less of this? Share your ideas and your opinions down below. This month and next month in the RPG segments, I plan on talking about RPGs that are fantastic for people who want to get into RPGs but just are struggling to find the time. Because we all know the RPG hobby, the biggest detriment to the hobby is the fact that it's just difficult to find the time when we're busy adulting. Sure, as teenagers, it's easy to find the time. Sure, as retirees, it's easy to find the time. But while we're in the middle of those two segments, it's hard to find the time to get our friends to the table. Whether it's from the standpoint of the DM, trying to find the time to make the adventures, the maps, the campaigns, and the stories that are going to entertain our players, or from the player standpoint who need to spend the time to create their players, create their heroes, create the player party, or even if you're just going to have a session 0 where everybody's going to sit around the table, work up their party, introduce themselves, talk to the DM about what kind of party should be made and the world that's going to happen, and try to make up their party. It is very, very time consuming. It's extremely hard for players of all kinds to find the time when they're busy trying to adult. So this month and next month, I want to talk about 2 different RPGs that actually are fantastic for people who just don't have the time. Whether they're one-shots or if they're more like today's thing, Beyond the Wall, games that are collaborative where the players are going to work together to create the world, create the adventure, and create the party, because they're all going to sit down, belly up to the table, and from the moment they move up to the table, they're all going to start working on creating the adventure. Now, if you're not familiar with Beyond the Wall is a fantasy-based RPG in a very low magic world. This is more akin to classic sword and sorcery or even classic Conan, where it's more about the feats of strength and very little about magic, is because magic is either from horrible necromancers, the bad guys, or you have your fledgling wizard who's still trying to learn the basics of magic, because this is a low magic world. This does a lot of really cool things. One's because we know usually when it comes to RPGs, the magic system is usually the hardest thing to understand. Throwing your daggers, attacking with a sword, usually those are easy concepts to understand. But the magic in this game is very low tech, which keeps it very interesting. This does a couple really, really cool things I'm going to cover in a little bit. But this is a wonderful RPG for the fact that you have all the ability to move up to the table, sit down, and create the adventure. Now, you can go ahead and check out Drive-Thru-RPG, and I'll leave a link down in the show notes down below, but go to Drive-Thru-RPG and get this game for $8 as a PDF. Additionally, if you are one of those people who likes a hardback book, you can also go to Drive-Thru-RPG and order the hardback version of this game. Now, the wonderful thing about Drive-Thru-RPG is they do hardbacks and PDFs, and generally speaking, most of the time when you order the hardback, they're also going to send you the PDF for free, which is really nice, because the moment you order it, you can start using it, and then they're going to send you the hardback, and it's usually of very high quality. I've never heard any complaints about the quality of the products. When you order one of the books that comes to your door, really great quality. Now, the PDF for this game is going to be $8. To get the PDF plus the hardback is going to cost you $33 for the basic game, which comes with a couple different adventures and a couple different characters, but definitely more than enough enjoyment for you to get many weekends out of gameplay out of this game. Or if you want, you can get a couple of the expansions, which allow you to take your characters into higher levels, add in more campaigns, more world building, but I'm just going to cover the basic game itself, and that's the basic game of Beyond the Wall. Now, instead of just rambling on here about rules and makeup of the gameplay and all this stuff, which is probably not going to mean a lot to people who have never played RPGs, or just is going to bore you to tears because you really just want to know what is so great about this game, I'm just going to go quickly over the basic mechanics, and then I'm going to show you why this game is so great. I'm not going to tell you, just going to show you. That way you can say, hey, I get the point now. I see why this is actually a great game for people who want to play RPGs and don't have a lot of time. So the basic mechanics of this game is taking the basic mechanics from classic basic Dungeons & Dragons and expert level Dungeons & Dragons from the late 80s. And hey, the cat's going to come to say hi. Hey, kitty. You have to jump up when there's a camera going, don't you? You are a camera hog. Cat goes to the ground. So this takes the classic mechanics of the basic Dungeons & Dragons and expert Dungeons & Dragons and brings it into the modern age with modern concessions to help improve on the basic gameplay and make it a much better game. So basic Dungeons and Dragons, if you're not familiar with it, it's a statistic-based system where you have 6 statistics. You have your 3 physical statistics and you have your 3 mental statistics. And the basic gameplay is going to resolve around a dice 20 or d20. It's a die that has a number from 1 to 20. And basically you're going to roll it. You basically, generally speaking, you want to roll high. There's a couple times you want to roll low. But the higher you roll, the better your chances of succeeding in something. Whether it's attacking something, whether it's hitting something with a sword, whether it's casting a spell, generally speaking, the higher you're going to roll, the better off you're going to be. There are a couple skills in the game, and that's the only time you want to roll low. So generally speaking, you're going to have a skill. Let's say you have a skill level of 12 in botany, just for an example. If you want to use a botany-based skill to see if you found a plant that does something, or let's say the DM says you found a plant, you want to know what it is, you're going to make a botany skill check. You're going to roll under your skill level. If you roll under it, you're going to succeed. If you roll above it, you're going to fail. If you fail, obviously the DM is going to say, well, you're not quite sure what it is. And if you fail spectacularly, maybe the DM may even lie to you about what it is and says, nope, that's not poison ivy. Nope, not at all. That is a wonderful plant that if you eat, it's going to fill you up. Want to try it? Sorry. So the basic mechanics of the game are pretty straightforward and pretty darn simple. The initiative system for this game is pretty simple also. Every single player has a set initiative, which makes things nice and simple. So it's going to speed up combat. Combat itself, again, revolves around the d20. When it comes your turn, you're basically going to say what you're going to do. You're going to roll a 20-sider, and based on the amount you're going to roll is going to decide if you fail or pass on whatever you're trying to do. And it's going to be the next player's turn, and basically events are going to go around like that. It's a wonderful, super simple system. What is so great about this game, though, what is so phenomenal about this game is this game is a collaborative story and world building system that starts from the moment when all the players belly up to the table. Because the very first thing all the players are going to do is they're going to figure out what kind of character they're going to want to play. And while that is going on, the DM is going to figure out what kind of adventure they want to run. And I'm going to show you how all that works really, really quick. The first thing you need to do as the owner of the game is you're going to print out a couple different character sheets for all the single players who are going to be playing your game. And then you're going to print out 1 copy of the starting village. And this is basically all you're going to need to print out until the players show up at the door. Once the players show up at the door, every single player needs to figure out what kind of character they want to play. Now there's multiple different characters available through this game system depending on which kind of expansions you buy. If you just get the basic game though, it comes with a warrior class, it comes with a rogue class, and it comes with a mage class, and a couple different varieties along those lines. But the awesome thing about the game is you're simply going to ask every single player what kind of class you want to play. You'll ramble off maybe like 12 or 15 of them. And then when the player says, yes, that's the class I want to play, you're simply going to print out a 4-page little booklet. And you're going to take this booklet and you're going to hand it to the player along with the character sheet. That's all you need to do, and you're almost ready to start playing. I know you're like, wait, you're seriously ready to start playing at that point? Yes, you're seriously just about ready to start playing at that point. That's how quick and simple it is. And that's one of the things that's so darn awesome about this game. So once every single player has their starting character playbook and their starting character sheet, you're simply going to take the starting village sheet for all the players. All the players as a group just need to figure out what the name of the starting village is. And again, already we're starting this collaborative storytelling and this collaborative story building right here, which is one of the great things about the game. So once all the players figure out what the name of the village is, we're simply going to write the name of the village across the top of the sheet. And then the thing we're going to do is every single village has its inn where all the players are going to meet up. So all the players are going to, as a group, figure out what is going to be the name of the inn. Once that's done, you're simply going to put this to the side. You're good to go on that aspect for just a moment. Next up, all the players are, as a group, are going to one by one, but it's kind of in a round, which is kind of cool here. They're going to develop all their characters. And you as a DM are going to interact with the players, but you are also going to be taking notes on your own scenario pack, the scenario that you picked out before the players show up at the door, because this is the scenario we're going to run through. Now, the cool thing about this is every one of these scenarios, they are replayable, and not just minutely replayable. They are extremely replayable, and that's one of the really, really cool things about that. And you're going to see exactly how that works in just a couple minutes. I'm going to cover character creation first. But just understand that as the players are creating their characters, you as the DM are going to be looking at your scenario pack right here, and you're going to be filling out various sections right here based on the comments and the way that the heroes players are leveling or creating the characters, and you're just going to fill in all these different boxes, and it works fantastically. Zero prep on the DM's part, Zero prep on the player's part. Again, time is that wonderful barrier to playing these RPGs. This is how we're getting past that barrier of time. So every single player is going to take their character playbook, and the only thing you're going to do is you're going to take a couple dice and you're going to make your starting character. So the first thing the player book or the playbook is going to tell you to do is they're going to tell you to name your character, and then you're going to write down your class of your character. Everybody starts at level 1. We'll worry about the rest of this alignment and everything else in just a bit. Let's go ahead and do the fun stuff. The first thing you're going to do is you're going to look to see what your statistics start with. So we see that the Devout Acolyte, which is the player that we're going to go ahead and make right here, starts with a wisdom of 12. So let's put 12 over here just off to the side, just as a quick note, because you're going to see that all our other stats are going to start changing here really, really quickly. Then all of our other stats start with an 8. Again, we're writing in pencil because we're going to erase all this pretty darn quick here. The next thing you're going to do is you're basically going to start rolling dice to create your character. So we see that we're going to need a D12 for the first thing we're going to need here. Simply roll the die, and we're going to roll a 6. We're going to read across here. It says, you led the sheep out into the mountain like your father before you. Add +2 to your con. So we'll do a +2, +1 to your dex, and +1 to your wisdom, and +1 to your strength. Now, the moment that you roll this, and again, all the other players around the table are doing the exact same thing at the exact same time, you as a DM are simply going to do very simple little questions every time some of the players are doing this. And you're going to use the answer to these questions to fill out these little sections of the different storyboards. So for example, using our Devout Acolyte player board here, we see that you led the sheep out into the mountain just like your father before you. That's your player background. You as a DM are just going to simply look at the player and say, what's your father's name? And you as a player go, I don't know, I'm not really good with names. Well, if you're not really good at names, you'll look over here at the cult scenario pack and you say, you want me to roll for it? And they can say, sure, go ahead and roll for it. And you're going to see this nice little chart you can roll for and say, okay, your father's name happens to be Jeffrey. Or if they're really good at names, they can come up with their own names. Again, keeping the production rolling and keeping everything rolling and keeping the interaction really, really high, which is something that's really, really cool about this. And let's say they decided their name was Jeffrey. You as a DM are simply going to write down the name of Jeffrey, and then we're going to move on from there. And again, all the players are going to be doing this, and you as a DM are going to be filling out every one of these scenario packs. Next thing we're going to do is, how did you distinguish yourself as a child? That's going to be a D8. Simply roll a D8. I'm going to roll a 4. And you says, no secret escaped you. +2 intelligence, +1 dex. So +2 intelligence, +1 dex. And then we're simply done with that page. We're going to move on to the next page. And again, all the players are doing this. And again, sometimes some of the players are going to roll something very nice or something interesting. You as a DM are just going to occasionally say, hey, something along the lines, ask a question about that. And occasionally you're also going to fill out the village sheet right here also. So going back to the character who said that we rolled a number 6. The number 6 says you led the sheep out in the mountain like your father before you. You may say, obviously your father was a sheep farmer. Where was your father's farm? And then that player will take the village map. They'll simply draw where the farm happens to be, and maybe we can be super creative artists, or maybe we're not going to be that creative an artist. And we're simply going to write down the name of the farm, and maybe we'll write down the name of important people because they are now important to our village. Again, the players don't know exactly what's going to happen, but we're filling this out all as a group collaborative thing, which is a part of what's so darn awesome about this game. Next up, we're going to have the next section here that says, the other player characters were your best friends. Who else in the village befriended you while you were growing up? Again, we are simply just going to roll a D8. Hey, my D8 right there. Make it nice and easy. I'm going to roll 8. It says, the grizzled mercenary who settled in town taught you a thing or two. +1 dex. +1 con. And +1 wisdom. And then you, again, as a DM, are going to look at the player and say, okay, what was the name of the mercenary? Do you want to come up with a name, or do you just want to have me name the person by rolling on the chart? Well, let's say they say, I'm going to name them. Let's say their name is Siegfried. Okay, where did Siegfried live? Did he live in the village? Yeah, he lived in the village. Okay, put him on the map. Okay, this is where Siegfried's house happens to be. Let's say he had some training dummies around back where he taught people, maybe he taught people archery. And again, while all this is going on, the DM is writing down all this information and all these different things that are going on, keeping track of all this, which is all going to be part of our adventure. And my horrible handwriting. Sorry, I'm trying to do this quickly. So now that we're going to move on from that, and our wonderful stick figures, those are supposed to be trained dummies. Don't make fun of my artwork because my artwork is not that great today. Finally, we're going to move on to the next section for the players. And again, all the players are doing all of this, so this map is going to look a lot more full than it would in this case, because I'm simply making one character here just for you right now. Next thing we are going to have here is you felt the god's power and it changed your life. You became a level 1 mage. You gained the class abilities, sense magic, and spell casting. We'd write all that stuff down. The skill religious lore, we'd write that down. And the cantrip blessing, again, we'd write that down on our character sheet. The table below will tell you your other spells. What else happened to you as you began your life of service? So let's roll a 6-sider. We're going to roll a 6. Wow, these dice are magical today. One of the gods spoke to you and told you that the old witch held great knowledge of the ancient ways, and so you spent time learning from her. +2 dex, +1 wisdom. See, +2 dex, +1 wisdom. And then we also learned the skill of herbalism. So we'll write down herbalism as our skill. Let's see, we'll just do this quickly. And then again, the DM's gonna look at the player and say, oh, there's a witch in town. What happens to be your name? You're like, well, I'm not good at witch names. So let's roll on this one. And we're gonna see that the witch's name is Catherine. So let's go ahead and write Catherine down as an important person. She's the witch. Her house happens to be over here. And we'll put witch's house. And we'll move on. Again, all the players are doing this, which is what's adding to the wonderful world right here. And what is the god's task for you? Hey, let's roll another die here, see what we're going to get. Here we get a 5. To walk with the beasts and to learn from them. You're blessed with the following magics. The spell Healing Touch. So I'll do Healing Touch. I'd write it down here quickly. Ritual Bind Familiar. Again, I'd actually spell this out. And the cantrip of Beast Ken. Again, I'm writing this quickly just to show you how cool this is going to be. And then we're going to gain +2 to our wisdom right there. We're done with that page, and then we're going to move on to the next one. It says, when you were most in need, the gods aided you. When you were most desperate, the player to your right was there with you. And again, this is going to be how we're going to bring the party together. One of the hardest things with RPGs is getting over the classic trope of everybody meet in a bar, and that's where we're going to start the campaign or the adventure. It's an old trope, half of us are tired of it, so it's nice to see ways for us as a party of players to be brought together through other creative ways. So we're going to simply roll a 6-sider again, and we're going to roll a 2. It says, you were beset by brigands, but the gods made a great light and they ran from your presence. The friend to your right protected you while you called upon your gods and gains +1 charisma. So the player to your right gains +1 charisma. You're going to gain +2 charisma, and you're also going to gain the spell of Flash of Brilliance. So I'll do that, Flash of Brilliance. And again, this is another one of those times when the DM is going to say, hey, what was the name of the brigands? Which direction do they run? Were they from a nearby hideout? What did that nearby hideout look like? And if all that stuff sounds really, really interesting, again, we can start drawing that stuff on the map and adding it to the map, or just saying that the brigands are maybe way, way off the map, way this direction, and they have a hideout. Again, this throws red herrings out there so the players don't know what kind of adventure we may be having. And again, that makes all these adventures so darn replayable. Next thing up we are going to have here is which of the old gods is particularly fond of you? D6 again. We're going to roll a 2. It says a god of new beginnings, fire, and cleansing. Again, we're going to write all this down on our character sheet under history. And that is going to give us +2 constitution, because apparently if you can resist fire, you're very, very strong. And you're going to get holy incense, which I'll put down there. And you'll get a brazier. Bronze brazier. Bronze brazier. Wow, that is almost comical. That's going to be worth a comment down below. I know it's going to give me at least 2 or 3 funny comments. A bronze brazier. Oh my gosh. Okay. So now that we're done with the character sheet, it says just basically fill out the rest of the character sheet. And that's what's so awesome about these player packs. Because while the players are doing all this, this is the time when the DM is going to sit down there and finish filling out all these sections. And they're going to create the adventure. Again, making this a wonderful gameplay experience for the DM and for the players without tons of prep on everybody's side, and allows everybody to just sit down at the table and start playing immediately. So while the players are filling out the rest of their character sheets, they're going to fill out the references with their saving throws, their weapons, their experience points, all their basic starting hit points, and all their special things along those lines, which is really darn cool. Not only that, you don't even need to explain to players how to really play the game, because the quick reference for the rules are right here. Right down here for making tests, how to do combat rolls, and all those great things. Again, that is one of the fantastic things about Beyond the Wall. belly up to the table, and start playing immediately. It's one of the things I love about the game so greatly. Not only that, and I'll talk about this a little bit later, this is why this game is actually great for making zero-level campaigns, for actually playing 5th edition Dungeons & Dragons. I'll talk about it in just a minute, but let's get back to the game here. Now again, like I said, while the DM is doing all of this, or while the players are doing all this stuff, the DM is working through their little sheet right here. Now again, the players weren't able to come up with a name. You can just roll for the name, and we're going to roll for the name because we're not feeling too creative today. And we're going to see that we are in the village of Oxley. So we have the village of Oxley, and again, the DM can be filling out on this sheet also. So the first thing we need to do is we're going to move on to the next page here, and we're going to get the background of the nefarious cult. Yes, I'm sorry, there's going to be a little bit of spoilers here, and if you want to avoid spoilers, just go ahead and fast forward a little bit here. I'll put some timestamps down below for everybody. But basically, while we've been playing along, we've been filling in names that have been going along right here for the background of the nefarious cult. At this point, the DM, after listing all the names and all the people involved, is going to roll a d8. And whatever they roll in the d8 is going to figure out who exactly is the one who's betrayed the characters. So in this case, nothing. The character's friends and possessions are free from the cult's influence for now. But let's say we had rolled a 2. So that means Siegfried, the weapon trainer, is the one who's going to betray the players. And then what does the cult desperately need? Well, we are filling this out as the players were giving out their announcements of everything that was going on. And whatever we rolled is going to be what the cult desperately needed. And then next, we're going to roll a d6 to find out what the cult's true purpose is. So we're going to roll a 1. The cult wishes to conduct a great and terrible summoning and bring into the world an ancient spirit of chaos. At least one of the number has discovered the ritual to do so, but needs the involvement of the entire cult, as well as some disturbing ingredients like human sacrifice to pull it off. So again, we're taking notes and everything's moving along swimmingly for the DM. Now we're going to roll for who is the leader of the cult. We're going to roll a 3. A priest of the old gods, tired of worshiping in secret and desiring to spread the word of his dark lords. Well, this would be a great time for the DM just to go ahead and add a character. Let's say that our cult leader is a female cultist. We're going to roll for it. We're going to roll a 4. Her name is going to be Kate. So we're going to just put down Kate down here. When the players say, who is that? We're going to say, well, she is a local priest who's been part of this town for about 2 to 2.5 years now. She moved in about 2.5 years, and she's a very good source of the modern religion in this little town of Oxley. And again, we're taking notes as we're going as a DM. So next thing we're going to do is we're going to roll for the events that are going to occur during the game. So let's go ahead and roll for this. And these are the events that are going to occur within the first 15 to 30 minutes of this session once we started playing. And we're getting pretty close to that at this point too. So we're going to roll a 6, and we're going to see about 15 to 30 minutes into the session, a man is found murdered and mutilated. Why did the cult do this? So the DM's going to write some notes of why this happened and fill that out right there. And that way we're ready for that. And then what might lead the characters off the track? So now we're going to roll for our red herrings. We want red herrings because this is going to add to the replay variety of this adventure, which is what's good. We want a lot of replay variety. So let's roll. We'll get a 5. The moon turns the color of blood. Many strange occurrences accompany this ill omen, such as the presence of uneasy spirits and the curdling of milk. Well, there's some good thematic stuff we can be adding. And this is stuff that can be red herrings for the players, and they're not going to realize what truly is going on until they get further into the adventure. Now, finally, we're going to roll for the dungeon, which is basically where the adventure will eventually end up for all the players. And the first thing we're going to roll is we're going to roll a d8. We're going to see that the entrance is guarded by armed men that guard the dungeon. The most obvious choice is to have the cultists themselves do this, but they could also hire other warriors to do it for them. Okay? So we're simply going to circle that so we know what we're going to start presenting the players towards the end of the adventure. And what challenge awaits inside the dungeon itself? A 5. Organized warriors patrol the dungeon and stand in the character's way. The cultists or the mercenaries are again good choices. So we're going to have lots of human encounters, which is going to be good to know when we get towards the last 2 pages of this little source scenario pack right here. And what is the final challenge of the adventure? Well, that's going to be the final thing that we are going to fight. It's going to be the final challenge of the dungeon is not a combatant, but the room itself. The chamber is probably trapped, may be dangerous to the characters in some way, and they must traverse these dangers to accomplish their goal. Well, looks like our final 2 adventure is going to be a really strong Indiana Jones themed ending, which could be a lot of fun. The player is going to fight some guards at the entrance to the temple. They're going to move further into the temple where they're going to fight some other guards, and finally they're going to find the main chamber room, which is going to be a large trap chamber. Again, look, it's all being written out for us. all the work as the DM is being done for us, which is really, really cool. Now, finally, we're going to roll to figure out what's going to happen after the player's done with this adventure, especially if we want to do a mini campaign, which is another good thing about Beyond the Wall. This game does allow you to do campaign play, and you can actually go all the way up to 10th level with this game. So we are going to roll a 6-sider, get a 3. A book of magic spells sits on a pedestal in the corner. The book contains the spells Conjure Darkness and Masked Image spells, as well as the rituals of Circle Protection, Call Storm, and Summoning. So this is probably what's going to be in the center of the trap room. So after all the players get through the traps, this is going to be their final reward. And then we're going to get to this final thing, which is going to give us hints that allow our players to get further campaign type stuff. So where's this adventure going to lead? Someone from a neighboring village is a member of the cult, and the characters discover that their neighbors are also facing these problems. So this is going to be the extended campaign, where the players are eventually going to leave the village of Oxley and move on to the next adventure zone, where they're going to get some more additional adventures. Now, the cool thing about all this on top of this is now we're also going to throw in some recent events, which is going to give the players a reason to get involved with the adventure. And again, this is going to be on roll on the table. Now, this is going to be rolled for every one of the players. And the cool thing is every single player is going to get a unique recent event. And if you start getting duplicates, you have these bonus ones down here. And that prevents you from having more than one player having the same single event. So we're going to roll for our main player right here, who is our acolyte, our devout acolyte. And we're going to roll and see that our devout acolyte is this morning you spotted carrion birds circling the village. Test strength, athletics, related skills may help. Success, you managed to bring one down and notice that it bears the brand of a farmer from town. How has he become entangled with the cult? Failure, the flock swoops down upon you. You take 1d4 damage before the start of the game. And again, all the players are going to have this little bit of encounter. And again, these are going to be very good things that are going to help the adventure. Now, the final thing that is really, really cool is based on all these rolls, we now have our suggested monsters that the players are going to encounter. So we saw that we have cultists, cult champions, and stuff like this. So we see that our human threats are basically what our players are going to encounter. But we do have potential supernatural foes and everything on those lines. But the amazing, awesome thing is, again, zero prep on the part of the DM, zero prep on the part of the players. All the players are able to belly up to the table. Everything is pretty much done as the players go through. And you have this wonderful adventure that you can play in this campaign-style game that really fantastically leads into 5th edition Dungeons & Dragons. Now, if you watched my monthly video vlog last month, you know that I talked about zero-level campaigns. The wonderful thing about zero-level campaigns is they allow you to get rid of the classic trope of the players meeting in a bar or an inn and start the adventure right there, which gets really, really boring. If you want to know what's really cool about this game, you can play this game Beyond the Wall as basically a zero-level campaign. After you play this different adventure right here, then you can have the characters evolve their characters basically into first-level Dungeons & Dragons characters. You're going to take the basic stats from all the characters that they had right here. These stats transfer over 100%. The hit points transfer over basically 100% for the most part. Alignment has to be modified a little bit, but almost everything here transfers over to 5th edition Dungeons & Dragons quite easily. And then you can have these players move in as first-level characters, or you can even have them move in as second-level characters. It transfers over fantastically. And again, the nice thing about this is it allows you to even play 5th edition Dungeons & Dragons without the hours of prep time as a DM and without the hours of prep time as a player. For GMs looking for a cure for the players' murder hobo ways, there is a new campaign coming out from Petersen Games, which is going to take players from 1st all the way up to 14th level in the world's greatest RPG game. Now, if you're not familiar with the concept of the murder hobo, well, that's the group of adventurers that go from town to town, slaughtering everything that moves. It's basically the entire solution to Rime of the Frostmaid, which is the most recent campaign from Dungeons & Dragons. But this is going to be an adventure system from Petersen Games, which will be much, much more interesting and might curb those murder hobo ways. Under typical circumstances, the murder of 4 people makes little stir in this grand city. In this case, however, the deaths threaten the city's political and social status quo and represent a much deeper threat to the long term, as 2 rival houses are going to have some of their families murdered. A new brand of entertainment has come to town, and the players must work cooperatively to solve this murder mystery and get to the bottom of this before an ancient evil wakes up and destroys our entire world. Now, this is going to be a campaign setting for a group of adventurers. It's going to take them all the way from 1st all the way up to 14th level in the very traditional style of Sandy Petersen Games, where this is less about slaughtering everything that moves, and every one of the decisions that the players make is going to have consequences, because players are going to have to pick sides, pick enemies, and find out the bottom, or get to the bottom of this grand mystery as they try to figure out what exactly is going on and prevent the great awakening of an ancient evil that wants nothing more than to enslave the world and bring out its eldritch forces and sacrifice the entire planet. Have You Found It is actually the 5th in a series of campaign adventures from Sandy Petersen Games, and every one of these campaign adventures is usually 4 books, which are going to be standalone campaigns that are going to allow players and GMs to bring a group of heroes all the way up to 1st, all the way up to generally to 15th level. These campaign adventures are nice and entertaining, and they take a nice diversion from the standard fare that you get from the 5th edition D&D standard campaigns from Wizards of the Coast, because a lot of these campaigns are much more involved, have some really good writing, and the storylines are a little bit more interactive with the players, where the players feel like their decisions matter, and it feels like less of a world that's going to constantly just be there for the players whenever they're ready for it, and more of this is worlds and campaign settings where the world is continuing to evolve, whether players are there or not, giving the players a much stronger feel like their decisions matter in every one of these adventures. Now, I enjoy every one of these adventures. My players have actually gone through 2 of the 5 sagas now, and I'm actually looking forward to when this entire saga comes out so I can go and start this with my players. And the nice thing about every one of these sagas is you're going to purchase a book, and it's usually about $20 to $25. I think they're about $25 if I'm not mistaken, maybe 20, I have to double check. But there's usually 4 books in the series, and you're just basically going to order a book, and a new one's going to come out every month, and it's going to go through a section of the adventure. Usually from 1st to 4th level, 5th to 8th level, 7th through 12th, and basically 13th through 15th approximately is how it's going to go. These campaign adventures are really well written, they're very entertaining, and their storylines are really, really fantastic. And if you as a GM are looking for a really interesting campaign where you're not going to have to do a lot of prep besides just reading the storyline and being ready for the players, and this is a really great storyline for you to go ahead and check out. There's 5 total sagas right now. This is the 5th one. All of them I can highly recommend, especially the first one, which deals with an interesting outlook on ghouls who can become a very interesting thorn in the sides of all the players. Now, between you and me, what I really would love to do with this Have You Seen It campaign system is when all 4 of the books come out, what I want to do, and I know this is going to be a lot of work on my part, but I think this is going to be really, really awesome. My players are really going to love this, is I want to incorporate this entire campaign system into the Beyond the Wall RPG. Now, there's a couple different reasons why I want to do this and why they think this is going to be absolutely fantastic. Now, 5th edition Dungeons & Dragons is a great system. It's known as the world's greatest RPG system for a great reason. But it also has a tendency to feel a little bubblegummy, especially when you start getting to the higher levels where death really doesn't become much of a concern for the players. Resurrection is there, players very rarely die, and you lose a little bit of the bite that I think that the Sandy Petersen adventures really deserve to really enjoy these. So what I want to do is once all 4 of these books come out, I want to transfer all 4 of these books into the Beyond the Wall rule set and try to run the players through that. I think it's going to be really interesting because you have a lower magic system, and I feel like the player is going to feel the pressure and all the decisions of the campaign all the way from 1st all the way up to 14th level. So it's something I want to work on. I'm hoping it works out really great. And I have some really cool ideas, and I'm hoping it's something my players are going to enjoy. Vienna Connection. Vienna, January 17th, 1977. The tortured, beaten body of an American has been found. Upon investigation, the federal police of Austria discover a code card. Okay, enough with the fun and games. The whole video, at time I'm producing this video and recording this video, this is the one thing I've been wanting to do is open this box of Vienna Connection. If you're not familiar with Vienna Connection is designed by Portal Games. Portal Games is a fantastic company which designs lots of great games that tell some fantastic stories. If you haven't played the Detective series of games, I can highly recommend them. It's a wonderful experience for a full party or a group of gamers, or just to play by yourself, and you're basically going to solve a whole bunch of mysteries, and they're really fun. It's like a classic whodunit story style game, and if you're familiar with the old Sherlock Holmes games or any of those style games, you're going to understand what kind of style game this is. So Vienna Connection is a game that has been shipped to people who pre-order the game. Here is a trick though. You can't actually play the game yet because this game also uses the internet. Portal Games has designed a website which is supposed to look like a grand whole internet type thing, but it's basically just one website you're going to visit. And when you visit this website, it's going to start helping you solve these crimes. And there's 4 different stories that are in here. They're all connected, and they're all based in the late 70s, which is kind of cool. It's basically a spy CIA type of situation. And I'm going to open these box and this package, and I'm going to see what happens to me and all this stuff. Here's the trick here. I have not opened any of this stuff, obviously, which means that there's probably going to be spoilers here. So if you do not want to have any part of Vienna Connection spoiled for you, go ahead and fast forward to the end of the video. I'll leave a timestamp down below. But if you're like me and you're super excited and you cannot wait for May 21st to go ahead and enjoy this awesome game, stick around, especially if you still haven't received your box, so you can see the wonderful package that's about to be delivered to you. So when you pre-order the game, it came with some extra wooden tokens. Well, who cares about those? We get this nice folder right here, and we get this nice box right here. I'm going to start with the folder because I have no idea what's actually inside the folder. And another really cool thing about this is when you pre-order this, they actually sent you this nice little, very extremely thematic letter. You saw at the beginning of the video where I read the letter kind of in a joking way, but that letter was sent you that arrived just before your box arrived. And I'm not going to lie, I kind of smiled with a giddy kind of smile when I got that letter, because I was like going, this is kind of cool. This is like one of those things where you're getting this full storyline and this full immersion. I thought it was a really nice touch. No, they didn't have to do that, but it just shows how much Portal Games loves to tell a story. That's something I really enjoy about Portal Games. The fact that when you play a Portal game, you're getting a story, and it's something I just enjoy immensely. So this right here is, looks like we're gonna get our mission stuff. We have mission 1, mission 2, mission 3, and mission 4. I am not opening any of these at all because I do not want any spoilers for myself. We're going to get a couple stickers here. Let's see here. We got the CIA sticker. We got the CIA sticker. Hold on. The CIA sticker. Okay. Let's see here. We got I finished Vienna Connection. Well, that'll happen very quickly. Hey, this is kind of cool. You know I'm a CIA agent, right? Hold on. Got to do it right. Got to do it just absolutely right. Hold on. You know I'm a CIA agent, right? Okay, that was fun. So we get a background on Vienna Connection. We are going to get a little bit on the Cold War. Oh, Cold War for Dummies. At least it's not a yellow binder book. We're going to get a little bit about the Soviet Union, and we're going to certificate of appreciation. This certificate this certificate is presented in recognition of your contribution to the success of the Vienna Connection pre-order campaign. Please accept our sincerest gratitude. Well, that's kind of cool. Not going to hang that up, but that is kind of cool. So this is just a whole bunch of little bit of extra stuff for extra cool theme. But I'm assuming that these are more than just theme, because I think these were the bonuses for pre-ordering the game. And I don't know if you're going to get this little envelope. So if you don't, you're missing out on 4 little envelopes, which are, I have no idea what's going to be inside them, but I'm not going to open up on camera because that'd be one heck of a spoiler, but that was kind of cool. Next up, we are going to get the actual game. Now, the back of the box shows you a lot of the stuff of what you are going to get in the game. You're going to see that this game is going to be for, I think it plays up to 5 players, if I'm not mistaken. It should play 1 to 5 players. There is a little bit of emphasis on this game. It does have a more mature theme to it, because, I mean, this is Cold War, this is CIA. It's a murder mystery, and heck, that thematic text I read right in the beginning showing that there was a beaten, tortured body should show you that this is probably designed for a little bit older people. Probably want to pay this for maybe 13 or 14. Again, I haven't opened it up to verify, but there's probably going to be some mature themes in here. But let's go ahead and open up this wonderful box to see just what happens to be inside. So, welcome spies to Vienna Connection. In this cooperative campaign game of deduction, you delve into the Cold War era Europe and lead a CIA Special Activities Division team. The SAD, or Special Activities Division team, carries out 4 covert missions by collecting evidence and analyzing data to achieve their goals. At the end of each mission, they submit a final report and recommend further actions. So we have the rule book, which actually this is kind of interesting. The rule book is not that big. Let's see, we have setup. Yeah, so there's a 1 page. Basic rules, which is going to be 3 pages. Mission end, and that's not a lot. So this looks like this is going to be really awesome. I'm imagining that most players, you're going to have one person who's take probably about 10 minutes to read those 3 or 4 pages, and then everybody's going to be able to sit down around the table and start playing. I hate to say it because it makes me sound like I'm being lazy when I'm really not being lazy. I'm just thinking about my friends and I as a group. I really am enjoying companies that are taking the time to make games that you can get to the table quicker. I'm not going to lie, I greatly enjoy my deep, rich games. I enjoy my Mage Knight. I enjoy my Civilization style games. I enjoy my Space Empires, but these are all games that you're not going to be able to unwrap the plastic wrap on the game, put it on the table, and start having fun immediately. You just can't do that with these kind of games. I really like a game where I can basically call my friends over, and about 10 minutes before they show up, I can just crack open the box, read a couple pages, and know that we're going to be able to enjoy the game. That is something I am really liking. Now, I'm not saying I want all games to do this. Lord knows I do not want that to happen because I do enjoy my rich, deep games, but I am enjoying the fact that there are a lot of games that are starting to help you enjoy them just by opening the box and getting into the game very quickly. Another game that does that very, very well is this War of Mine, which does it brilliantly. That's a super rich, deep game that you can get out, get to the table, and enjoy so darn quickly. So back to the box. We have mission number 1, which is confidential. I'm not going to open this because I don't want any more spoilers. Mission 2. Mission 3, and we have mission 4. And then we have a top secret box or folder. I'm going to peek just because I can't resist. Oh, wow. Huh. Ooh. Okay, I can show a little bit of this without being too spoiler heavy, so don't look away from the screen because this is not going to be super spoilery. So check this out. This is kind of cool. It says top secret. You open it up and it says access only after finding a direct reference to the indicated file number. These are going to be a whole bunch of files, and I hope I can turn this without giving away any spoilers. But look how many of these direct files there are. I'm assuming that we're going to get references to every one of these files, which is going to help tell the story of this detective style game. So that is going to be really darn awesome. Tape doesn't want to stick. It doesn't matter. It doesn't need to stick. I'm going to tear that open anyways. Next up, we are going to have the white zone, blue zone, red zone. These, I believe, are different missions, if I remember correctly, from what I heard. I could be wrong. Let's see. Mission 1. See, mission 2. Yep, it's 2 pages for every one of the missions in case you want to play them again. Mission 3. I'll make that so you can read it. So Man in Black, mission 1, we can play it twice, I'm assuming, because there may be different choices. Mission 2, Man in Black, mission 2 is the White Rabbit. Sorry, mission 1 is the White Bee. Mission 2 is the White Rabbit, and you get 2 pages for it. Mission number 3 is Yellow Mimosa. Interesting. That may be a hint in and of itself. So mission 3, Yellow Mimosa, and then finally mission number 4 is Lime Grasshopper. So you get 2 of those missions. So that looks like you get at least 2 playthroughs. You get a couple more wooden components, which is already what I got. Why is this different? Oh, because these are a little bit fancier. So I guess if you pre-ordered it, you got slightly fancier components where they actually drilled it out here. I'll show you what I'm talking about here. It looks like they made them a little bit fancier, so you see that these are all kind of drilled out, so you can see how they look a little bit fancier, like they put a little bit of extra time in the wooden components. And then you just have the standard wooden components, which are, I hate to say standard because they still look pretty darn good. Just because they're not drilled out, you can still tell what they are. So they're actually pretty darn decent. So I'm going to say this is one of those cases where people who didn't pre-order, don't feel bad. You're not missing anything that's going to make you feel super guilty about it. This isn't like Kickstarter with some companies where you're missing entire pieces of gameplay by not pre-ordering. You're just missing out on a little bit of bling. And hey, bling is what we already talked about in this video, so you know my opinion on bling right now. And then finally, we are going to get some cards, and I'm willing to bet that there's going to be something underneath the inserts. Wow, they let me down. That's a first. Maybe they didn't like the complaints from the people who accidentally threw away the stuff. So that is going to be Vienna Connection. I'm not going to open up these cards because I definitely do not want to spoil anything for me. And I'll put all this back in there, and this looks like this is going to be a heck of a lot of fun. So I'm highly looking forward to this. Again, it's not going to be playable until May 21st. But come May 21st, I am going to be over at my friends' houses because we're all vaccinated, and we are going to get into Vienna Connection, and we're going to see if we can solve all 4 of these mysteries, thanks to Portal Games. I hope you enjoyed this video. I know this was a little bit of a longer video session this month for the first Monday show, but I kind of felt guilty because April was a little bit dry for the channel just because my work schedule was so extremely hectic for the month of April. In the total, for the month of April, I had 3 days off for the entire month, which means I fell behind a lot of content for the channel. So there was a lot of stuff that I wanted to talk about in today's first Monday show. And again, this first Monday show was a little bit late. So let's call it the second Monday show, and I will make sure that next time I'm always going to be on time as much as I can. Hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you enjoyed the video series. If you have any comments or questions, make sure you leave them down in the YouTube comments down below. I'll definitely get to them as quickly as I can. You can also feel free to email me off-the-shelf board game reviews. That's otsbgr@gmail.com. I'll try to answer email as quickly as I can. If you enjoy the content and you enjoy this video channel, think about tossing $1 over in the tip jar over on Patreon. Just one single dollar in the tip jar can help me cover my costs and help me keep bringing out new content for you for the channel on a constant basis. I've been doing this for about 8 years now. I'm about to hit my 9-year anniversary, and something I think would be absolutely phenomenal is if I can break 8,000 subscribers before the end of my 8th year. If you can help me do that, I would be ever so thankful. If you enjoy this video, if you enjoy this video series, click that like button, click that subscribe button, and as always, thanks for watching.